Welcome back to Half the Battle. I'm your host, as always, Daniel Levi, your co-host, Shaq. We're going to be talking Bellator 198, Fedor versus Mir, and a quick recap of UFC Atlantic City. And Shaq, it's going down tomorrow, Saturday, Fedor versus Mir, two legends of the sport. They were never able to fight because one was UFC champ, the other was Pride champ, and now they meet in Bellator.
Yeah, Fedor's one of the greatest of all time. Mir's a former UFC world champion, one of the best on the mat to ever do it. They're well past their primes, but it's still an entertaining fight.
Well past their primes, but as you know, with these ageless clinics these days and, no USADA and Bellator, I think they might be able to work around a couple things, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, of course. They'll be allowed to take their steroids and inject needles in their ass.
And speaking of injecting needles in asses, what'd you think about that NFL draft last night, man? My boy Baker Mayfield with the first overall round pick.
I mean, and rightfully so. All the other quarterbacks, they're probably a little too soft. And Baker Mayfield is the one that, even though he's the most controversial, he's the one that's going to play his hardest, and he's the most competitive one.
Yeah, and I mean, at the end of the day, it's not about what you say on Twitter. It's about how you play on that field. And let me ask you this. Are the Browns going to have more than 0 wins this coming season?
Yeah, I think they'll get a couple, but I don't think they'll be making the playoffs, if that's what you're referring to.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong. I believe they haven't won a playoff game since 1994.
Yeah, and I mean, their organization has generally been a complete joke, so it's going to be interesting to see if they remain a complete joke or if they get it together, but most likely they'll still be a complete joke.
But luckily for Cleveland, I mean, they still have their first ever world champion in Stipe Miocic, and, we'll see if my boy LeBron lives up to the name.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because Stipe is their champion, but I mean, if we went on those streets of Cleveland and we asked, would they really know him?
Well, he did get a parade. I will say that much, but yeah, I get where you're coming from 100%. But look, let's break down a couple of these fights real quick. First up, it's actually Rafael Lovato Jr. It's funny because one of the media members during the press conference, they were like, Rafael, and he's like, my name's Rafael. I'm American. Only my Brazilian friends can call me Rafael. I was like, oh, shit. But anyways, Rafael Lovato Jr., he's minus 405. The comeback on Gerald Harris is plus 360. Now, it's interesting, Shaq, because Gerald Harris literally got the call coming off the couch a couple days ago. Now, this is a guy that on his best day, he knocked out David Branch with a slam. On his worst day, he's going out there losing decisions to Josh Berkman. And Rafael Lovato, I'll tell you what, man, the kid's been impressive. He's been choking everyone out that he's faced. And the one time he went the distance against the former, I believe, D1 wrestler Chris Honeycutt, he beat him as well. So Rafael Lovato's been very impressive. He's minus 405 for a reason. Who you got in this matchup?
Well, when Harris fought Berkman was back on the HGH back then, and, he was probably one of the better welterweights outside the UFC, so I guess it would be a credible loss at the time. And then Lovato, he's been doing his thing. I mean, I think he's a little vulnerable on his feet, but he beat Honeycutt's last fight, who, was a decent, a good Bellator fighter. I mean, he's only lost, 2 fights maybe? So, that was a solid win. He submitted Mike Rhodes in the fight before that. And I think Harris, was retired. He's taking us off the couch. I think if this fight hits the mat one time, it's probably going to be over. If they stand, I still think Lovato will win that as well. Of course, we'll have to watch out for the power shots, of course. But I think Lovato will be fine here as long as he gets us to the mat.
Lovato also has another impressive win that we haven't mentioned. That's against a very hype prospect in Kevin Holland. This is a guy, look out for him on Dana White Tuesday Night Contender, because I guarantee you he goes out there and gets a highlight reel finish, and he will be the newest member of the UFC roster. I mean, it's a kid that decisioned Curtis Millender, who the guy that just knocked out Thiago Alves. So, you know what I'm saying?
He also finished Jeff Neal.
Yeah, so Kevin Holland's no slouch. Rafael Lovato submitted him in the first round. what Gerald Harris is known for, he's known for picking these dudes up and slamming them unconscious. But I don't know if you saw the last one. It was against a fat scrub who was eating Doritos the night before. Rafael Lovato ain't going to the gas station getting corn dogs with extra cheese the night before the fight. And I think that, look, Rafael Lovato, he's going to find his way to the back of Gerald Harris. I think he's going to choke him out at some point. I think the minus 405 price tag is warranted. You can make an excuse about the quick change in opponent, this and that, but I feel like Rafael Lovato has the same game plan every single fight, and you have to be training to fight a jiu-jitsu black belt of that caliber on the reg, and I don't think Gerald Harris has been doing that. I think he's simply happy to be here, happy for the opportunity. Shout out to him for stepping up. He's coming off of retirement, too. He thought that was it. So, he was retired 3 days ago. Now he's stepping in there with Rafael Lovato Jr., so I think the price tag is warranted. And I see Rafael coming out here and tapping him out. So, Rafael Lovato Jr. for the win. Now, next up in the co-main event of the evening, we got Best Fight Pick sponsored athlete, Emmanuel El Matador Sanchez. He's minus 600, Shaq. The comeback on Sam Sicilia is plus 450. Now, Shaq, man, I kind of, I don't want to say I regret hyping Emmanuel Sanchez up so much, but it looks like the days of getting him at pick'em odds against Georgie Karakanian, getting him as an underdog against Daniel Strauss, getting him at under minus 250 against Marcos Galvo. Seems like those days are long gone, my friend.
Yeah, I think it was more so to just due to Sicilia's history. I mean, before Sicilia's last fight against Galvao, which was a very close fight that could have won either way. I mean, he lost 3 in a row. I mean, the guy wasn't performing. He's got a losing record in the UFC, and quite frankly, he's just basic. I mean, he just swings big power bombs, and I mean, to be honest, I think if Manny stood in the pocket and exchanged power bombs with him, I think Manny could beat him there. I think Manny's better everywhere. Sicilia, I question his heart, I question his toughness, I question his chin, I question his submission defense. Well, I think he's a basic guy. He likes to, swing big hooks. And I just think the pace of Manny, I think maybe early, Manny will probably eat a couple shots. But as the fight carries on, I just see the cardio, landslide advantage in cardio and just tenacity. And I see Sicilia breaking eventually. And I think Manny will finish him.
You think he's going to finish him with strikes or with a submission?
Whatever whatever way he wants to go out.
Yeah, and if it happens to go to the scorecards, I see a 30-26. Look, I think Emmanuel Sanchez, he's the future Bellator featherweight champion. I cannot wait to see him in there with the likes of Patricio Pitbull, maybe a rematch with Daniel Weichel if he can somehow pull that upset off. Because Manny Sanchez, this is a guy that, he's not the most athletically gifted, but he's got the heart of a lion. His cardio, I mean, he pushes a pace on guys that they can just not keep up with. The volume starts to pour on, and he breaks everyone he fights. And it's interesting seeing Manny Sanchez in a dog or pass situation when he's not the dog. You know what I'm saying, Shaq? When he's a minus 600 favorite. But it's warranted, If it was a minus 250 or less, it'd be max bet season. But unfortunately, it's out of price range, so we're just going to have to sit back and enjoy. And I can't wait to see that Best Fight Picks logo inside the Bellator cage because, as you know, we are sponsoring Manny Sanchez. And this is the last week that you can use the promo code Matador to save 15% off any package. We already have our first max bet for UFC 224 posted. And Shaq, you know the deal when we have a consensus max bet, right?
UFC 224 in Brazil, max bet season, going to be easy money. Going to get the job done and move on to the next week.
When we have a consensus max bet, we are undefeated. Lifetime. That's our history. Consensus max bets, we are undefeated. We have one for UFC 224. So if you want to save 15% off that, go use the promo code Matador at bestfightpicks.com checkout right now because this is the last week that we're offering that promotion. Now, obviously, we both got Emmanuel Sanchez. I'm going to pick him via finish as well. I do think that, look, just avoid the big bombs of Sicilia. Not like I don't think he can take him. I mean, Manny has an incredible chin. But that being said, it's still a fist fight on a Saturday night. They still have 4-ounce gloves. You can't walk in there with your hands down and your chin up. You still got to go in there disciplined. He does that. I think he runs away with this fight. And I think he breaks Sam Sicilia. Main event of the evening. we got the two legends. We got Frank Mir is minus 140. The comeback on Fedor Emelianenko is plus 120. Now, Shaq, they finally meet in Bellator. And this is a very anticipated fight. I'm hearing that the numbers are trending, that this might be one of their most watched events. So it's going to be nice having some eyes on that BFP logo. But real quick, in the main event, who you taking?
I'm going to go with Fedor Emelianenko. I mean, last time Frank Mir fought, that was a long time ago, man. I mean, that was when I think when Ross Pearson beat Chad Lepre, man. That was such a long time. And he's been, doing other things. I think it's pretty obvious he's got one foot out the door. It's pretty obvious he's here for a nice little six-figure paycheck, probably even more than six figures. He's probably going to make a lot. And, Fedor, it was sad what happened in his last fight because, he did get knocked out. And Fedor, that's just a guy, I feel like if Frank Mir gets on top of him one time with that 20, 30-pound weight advantage, probably will go Frank's way. But if they keep it standing, I think Fedor's going to knock him out. Frank's chin ain't been touched in a long time. And I got Fedor by first round KO.
Yeah, look, it's going to be interesting because I'm always rooting for Fedor. Look, I don't have any money on this fight. I don't have a dog in this fight, but I'm a longtime Fedor fan. Obviously, got that signed old school photo of Fedor on my wall. You know what I'm saying? The Last Emperor. And Frank Mir is also a legend. I've been a fan of his as well. He was actually really good with his commentary back in the WEC days. But most recently, speaking of commentary, he's been flying out to Russia about every 5 weeks to do commentary for ACB. So you got to wonder if that's had an effect on his training schedule, because back in January, he was looking super overweight. Now, I watched the weigh-ins earlier today. Looks like he's back in shape. Looks like not having USADA in the picture has definitely benefited him. So, physically speaking, he looks on point. Now my question is, are his skills as sharp as they once were? Is he going to have that sharp boxing he had in that first Nogueira fight? Has he been training his jiu-jitsu where he's able to rip limbs off again? The thing with Fedor, many people criticize his last fight against Maldonado, and yes, he was a bit of a slower version than he once was, but I'll tell you this, man. The dude still got heart. The dude still wants to be there. If he was just showing up for a paycheck, he could have quit after that first round, but instead, he came back and won the second and third round after getting 10-7 in the first. So, that to me shows me that Fedor will always be a lifelong fighter. He's got the heart of a champion, and with Mir, we've never truly seen Frank Mir overcome adversity. Maybe the second Nogueira fight he was getting a little teed off on, but I feel like Nogueira simply made a mistake there, and Frank capitalized. But I've never seen Frank Mir win a back-and-forth fight. So either Mir is going to be able to catch him, or Fedor can catch him too. But if it's a long, drawn-out battle, I actually do see Fedor Emelianenko getting the better of that. So I'm going to go with the Last Emperor here, man. I'm going to go with Fedor for the win. So before we recap UFC AC, just got to remind them, go to bestfightpicks.com, use the promo code Matador, because that promo code will expire by Monday to save 15% off any package. Already got our first max bet for UFC 224. It's going to get the job done. And real quick, man, about UFC Atlantic City. Kevin Lee went out there against Edson Barboza. And, it's one thing to get a win over Barboza. And, we thought that the fight with Khabib and Barboza, that's about the most dominant you can get. I feel like Kevin Lee took it to another level, Shaq.
Yeah, it was kind of surprising to see Edson in that state. I thought Edson was done within a matter of seconds. So it pretty much let me know Khabib probably did ruin his life, just like how Khabib ruined Michael Johnson's life. So, I guess Kevin, I still think Kevin's a top, 5 guy. I think he is number 5. So yeah, I think Kevin's one win away from a title fight. It's him, Poirier, and Eddie. So who those 3 are in the running. So. But I thought it was a great performance. It surprised me to see Edson looking like that, and I think Edson's probably on his way out, and I think he needs to take a lot of time off.
Yeah, he definitely needs to take a lot of time off, because if this would have hit the scorecards, we might be looking at 50-43, and the fight prior to that with Khabib was 30-24, you know what I'm saying? So he's been taking consistent ass whoopings by two similar styled opponents. But with Kevin Lee, it wasn't just, how imposing he is in the tie-ups and how strong he was and how quick he was able to get him to the mat. I mean, he walked Edson down in the pocket, and he was landing some hard shots against him on the feet too, Shaq.
Yeah, for sure. Edson, immediately backed up into the fence. Kevin is a physically imposing guy, and a lot of guys get scared about that size. And, he's probably got the best tie-up in the game. So I think he's got a better tie-up than Khabib. I'll go ahead and say it.
You know what else I want to say? How about that recoverability of Kevin Lee? Because when he ate that wheel kick, we've seen other people go out stiff like a board. They never come back the same. And Kevin Lee, 3 seconds after he got hit with that kick and he did the salsa dance, he's on top, landing a takedown of his own.
Yeah, I thought it was bad fight IQ from Edson. But at the same time, he was completely gassed. So, it was great that he survived and that he showed the wits to stay in the fight and dominate. And I'm interested to see where he goes.
The sad thing with Edson is that, we've always said for a long time he might be the best athlete, just pure athlete in the UFC. But when the going gets tough, he's not necessarily known for winning back-and-forth fights. The only back-and-forth fight I can recall him winning is the Danny Castillo fight, which many people thought he lost, and that was a long-ass time ago. Now,
he beat Danny Castillo's ass, and he beat Paul Felder in a back-and-forth fight. He beat Beneil Dariush in a back-and-forth fight.
Now, my question here is, I still think he can beat a lot of top 15 guys, but are we going to eventually get to the Joe Lozon punching bag point with Edson Barboza after 2 straight serious ass whoopings?
Yeah, I think so, man, because I feel like the blueprint is out there now. I feel like a year ago, everyone still had this reputation of Edson Barboza as the scary striker, but now the blueprint is out there to beat him. Get in his face, crowd him, touch his chin. He obviously doesn't like to wrestle, and he obviously struggles to get up off his back. So I think from now on, it's probably going to start going a lot downhill. And with the guys coming up at 155 these days, it's the deepest division in the UFC. So I do think it's going to go downhill.
Now, the thing is, he's still considered, a top 6 guy. So, he's got to fight tough competition. Are we going to try to give our boy James Vick that big name win? Do we want to see Justin Gaethje get a rebound win? Or, are you thinking some guys outside the top 15 for Edson Barboza?
No, I think he can, he'll be fed to these guys coming up, like the OAMs, the Vicks, the Hernandezes of the world, and, that's just how the game works now. So, if Vic doesn't accept this fight with Fedor, he should, the thing is, Edson's probably going to take a year off unless he wants to come back for another paycheck. But, Edson, Gaethje, I think Gaethje would win that fight, to be honest. It's a tough, man. I think his days are numbered at 155.
Now, as far as Kevin Lee is concerned, should he sit out and wait for a title shot? Should he try to get a fight with Eddie Alvarez? I personally don't want to see Kevin Lee versus Dustin Poirier. I feel like Dustin Poirier's punched his ticket to that next title shot. So, are you thinking Kevin should wait? Should he take Eddie? Or maybe a rematch with Tony?
I think the rematch with Tony is definitely out the question. It's probably going to be Poirier or Eddie. Unless the thing is, if they go with the Poirier-Eddie rematch, then Kevin's, he's going to have to take another fight or sit out. So it's there's going to be one out of those 3 that end up with their dick in their hand. So it's going to be unfortunate to see who it is. Hopefully it's not Dustin, but one of those guys is going to end up getting fucked over.
Now, how do you think Kevin Lee would match up with Khabib? Because, there's a certain presence he brings to the table when he ties these guys up.
Yeah, I think Khabib's first L is right around the corner, man. Of course his wrestling's good, but Kevin Lee is, in my opinion, might even have like a little bit of cleaner style, man. Because Khabib has a tendency to shoot from like really far out, but at the same time, he was in a pressure moment against Iaquinta where it was just I can't lose this fight, and he still 50-43'd him. So I think Kevin matches up well. On paper, everyone's saying, Poirier is the easiest fight for Khabib because, Poirier doesn't have the wrestling background, but I wouldn't sleep on DP's wrestling. But on paper, I would say Kevin probably brings the most problems. But between you and me, Ali and Khabib want no part of Eddie Alvarez.
Yeah, I mean, Eddie Alvarez is known for playing spoiler. I remember when he was counted out against RDA, and man, Eddie Alvarez is a guy you don't count out. That's all I have to get. And don't bring the dog out of Eddie. You know what I'm saying, Shaq?
Exactly.
So Frankie Edgar took on Cub Swanson. Now, look, I said on the show that 9 times out of 10, Frankie Edgar beats Cub Swanson. But if there was one time that he could potentially lose the matchup, I mean, it had to be last week because, look, he had everything going wrong for him. He was coming off a knockout loss to Brian Ortega. He was still on medical suspension. His manager told him not to take the fight. There was the unfortunate passing of his father the week before. Frankie goes out there. He gets a 30-27 on all 3 judges' scorecards, man. I mean, the first time they fought, he beat Cub Swanson on the mat. The second time they fought, he dominated him on the feet. I mean, Frankie Edgar, we already knew he was a future Hall of Famer, but, I mean, way to solidify that.
Yeah, I think he picked the right opponent. I feel like if it was anyone else, he might have took another canvas snap. Cub, I mean, like we said on the show last week, I mean, look at his wins on that streak. Artem, Tatsuya, Choi, and Hakran. Like, those guys are all frauds in my opinion. So, I totally expected him to kind of lay an egg. I still think he's, a top 10 guy, but I think his days are numbered as well, man. And, he's looking for a fight with Hanacho, and I think that's not a smart idea.
Well, I think it's a very smart idea for our pocketbooks, and I sincerely hope that they make that matchup, because at some point, the top 5 guy, if he can't get that title shot and he can't beat the guys below him, you got to let the guys that are ranked above you, ranked below you, you got to give them their chance.
And I feel like he was kind of broken going into the fight. I mean, his interview, and when I saw that interview, I instantly knew he wasn't going to win this fight. I mean, it just seemed like, I feel like he wants these fights where, like, he's the vet and he's fighting a prospect, and so he's looking for motivation. He's looking for answers, in my opinion. So I thought he laid an egg. But, I mean, Frankie was going to win that fight no matter what, under any circumstances. And Frankie, I mean, I feel like him and Hanato could get it in as well.
Yeah, but for Frankie, I think he's going to sit out and wait for the winner of Max versus Ortega. And I cannot wait.
I personally think that's a joke. I mean, he got knocked out. Like, I think that's a joke. I think he needs to win, 2 more fights. Like, he got knocked out in the first round. Bro, you got to climb back up the ladder. Like, I understand he's a big name and all, but, how many title shots are we going to give this guy? Nothing's changing in that division. Oh, Frankie Edgar getting another title shot. He got knocked out.
Listen, I mean, facts are facts, but if Max comes out and beats Ortega, that's a big if. But if he does, Max versus Frankie, that's a fresh matchup. So don't be surprised is all I got to say. Now, heavyweight division, Justin Willis and Chase Sherman had a nice little 3-round knock. Justin Willis came out hard in that first round, dropped him. And I'll tell you what, man, Chase Sherman, even though he did get dropped in that first round, second and third round, he showed some improvements, man. He was slightly more elusive than he has been in past fights. You can tell he's been trying to move his head off that center line a little bit. I personally hope they don't cut him because I did see the improvements. But, I mean, what was your opinion of Willis versus Sherman?
I thought it was a lackluster fight. I thought Sherman, performed well, for his skill level. I definitely thought he made, a slight improvement. Willis, it was a lackluster fight. I think he's one of those heavyweights where, if he doesn't knock you out in the first round, then it's going to be, a snooze fest, like a lot of typical heavyweight fights. And I'm interested to see who he fights. Man, I actually had a good fight for him. I can't remember who it was. It was Justin Willis versus, was it? Wait, no. Oh well, fuck it. But I think he's good. I think he's gonna have a good career. I definitely think, first L time, or he's already took his first L, but first L time in the UFC is right around the corner, and I think he's a nice, slick southpaw. Sherman, I think they will keep him. I mean, he is, I guess, what we would consider a fan favorite just because of his Twitter account, but I definitely think his next fight is make or break.
Yeah, look, I'm thinking Justin Willis versus Shamil Abdurakhimov, man. I mean, he's number 15, Shamil's number 13. Take a step up the ladder, match those two up, and see who the better man is. And with Chase Sherman.
How about Justin Willis versus my boy Adam Wojciech?
Okay, I like that as well. My boy Adam Wojciech pulling off Uma Plata's at heavyweight, you know what I'm saying? So that might be a good matchup as well. And you know what you could do? You could bring Mr. Arjan Bueller and put him in there with Chase Sherman.
Yeah, for sure. Or we got a new heavyweight. We got Blagoy Ivanov in there now, so we got him as well.
Oh yeah, my boy Blagoy got signed. Look out for him. Serious fighter. Now, man, this one shocked me. David Branch versus Thiago Santos. Look, I said if the fight hits the mat one time, it'll most likely be over. Now, the fight did hit the mat one time and it was over, but it wasn't how I expected, Shaq. I was referring to if Branch takes Santos down, takes his back, chokes him out. He goes out there, he knocks out the dangerous KO artist in Thiago Santos in under 3 minutes, Shaq.
Yeah, that was a great performance, and Branch proved that he's one of the most underrated guys. He shut a lot of people up. People thought that Maheda was going to kick him one time and the fight was going to be over. So, I thought Maheda was going to knock him out as well. But Branch showed that he's one of these guys that you can't sleep on. And, preferably I'd like him to fight, I was going to say Brad Tavares, but I think Brad Tavares should hold out for a better fight. But I think Branch is a top 10 guy, man. I mean, I think he solidified that. He beat Christoph. He beat Maheda Santos. So I think he's got a bright future as well. And it's funny because he was supposed to fight Yoel. And, although a lot of people think Yoel would have probably launched him, don't sleep on my boy Dave Branch, man.
Yeah, look, I got Yoel in that matchup. Here's what I'm thinking. And I know this might sound kind of funny, but look. Vitor Belfort and Lyoto Machida are about to fight. Now, before you laugh, Vitor's ranked number 9 in the middleweight rankings. Lyoto's ranked number 12 in the middleweight rankings. Both those guys are ranked. I say Dave Branch versus the winner of Machida and Belfort, man. You know what I'm saying? Take him in there, put him in there with a legend. Maybe that'll help his name grow a little bit.
For sure. And, both those guys, their clocks are ticking. But another good option would be they got another star brewing, and my boy Paulo Borgini about to fight Uriah Hall in a few weeks. So he might get the winner of that as well.
Paulo's number 15, Uriah's number 11, right?
And that's because, Uriah knocked out Christoph, but turns out Christoph was a fraud. And, Uriah also did beat Gegard Mousasi. So I guess I understand why.
Let's just say that's going to change very, very soon. That's all I got to say about that. But, man, this is the one that I was completely wrong about. Aljamain Sterling defeated Brett Johns 30-27 on all 3 judges' scorecards. Now, there's times when you're wrong and it's because of a fluke. There's times when you're wrong and it's because of an injury. And then there's times when you're wrong because you're just simply 100% wrong. And this is one of those situations, and I called this fight wrong. Aljamain Sterling was the better man. Brett Johns wasn't ready. And Aljo was able to do his little thing to Brett Johns in this one. Now he's calling out Dominic Cruz.
Yeah, props to Aljamain. He was the better fighter. And he definitely seemed like he gained a lot more physicalness and seemed like he was a little more tuned in, man. And generally he, likes to back up and shy away from punching exchanges. But props to him. His hands got a little better. And his toughness got a little better, so I think he's a little stretching out with the Dominic Cruz call out, but I think he should fight my boy Cody Stamann next.
Yeah, that's definitely a fight that I'd be interested in. You got number 8 in Aljamain Sterling versus number 11 Cody Stamann. Sign me up. I'm all for it. And as far as Brett Johns, he's got to go back to the back of the line and work his way back up. He's currently number 14. You got guys like Tomas Almeida at number 13. You got Eddie Wineland at 15. So there's lots of options for Brett Johns. I'm sure he will come back. I mean, look, he had to take his first L. No one is exempt from that first L. It was simply first L time for Brett Johns, and props to Sterling for being the better man on the night. That's all I got to say about that. Now, Dan Hooker took on Jim Miller. And look, we both thought Hooker was going to win, but I didn't know he was going to win at the 3-minute mark of the first round via KO. And the only thing that sucks is that we couldn't get a minus 250 or better to max bet it. You know, it was about minus 350, and rightfully so. They knew this was a bit of a mismatch with Jim, you know, being on his way out and Dan Hooker being on the way up. And I got to say, Dan Hooker's been looking better at 55. I know he was in there with Ross Pearson and Jim Miller and, you know, DeCasey, who's super green. But look, man, he isn't getting hit with the same amount of shots that he used to. He's moving his head better. He's finding his distance better. I feel like, you know, I'll go as far as saying that he might be a new man at 155 pounds.
Yeah, I think he is a new man at 155. I wasn't shocked at all by the knockout. Jim's damage meter has been adding up for a long time, especially his last 3 fights with Poirier, Pettis, and Trinaldo. It made perfect sense that he went stiff that night with the 3 ass whoopings he's been taking. So I think Hooker, you know, I think his best days are ahead of him. And, you know, I like that Paul Felder call out because when I really think about it, what the fuck has Paul Felder done? I mean, Charles Oliveira, Alessandro Ricci, and Stevie Ray, I mean, big whoop, you know what I'm saying? So I was a fan of the call out. I mean, he did it right in front of his face. So if not that, I think he deserves a big spot, you know, maybe on an Australian card against somebody, you know, maybe who's a lightweight? Maybe Gilbert Burns versus Dan Hooker. Boom, right there.
Yeah, Gilbert Torino versus Dan Hooker is a good fight. If Paul Felder wants that fight, I'm okay with that. I know Paul Felder has his sights set on someone else, and all I got to say about that is be careful what you wish for, Paul. Take the Dan Hooker fight, kid. You know what I'm saying? But either way, I'm excited to see what's next for Dan Hooker. And as far as Jim Miller's concerned, he said he wants to come back in July. So, you know, how can you say no to a guy like Jim Miller?
And I think the perfect guy for Jim Miller to come back to is another guy that took out a vet recently, and Chris Gritzmacher.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's he wanted Chris Gritzmacher.
He wanted to fight Gritzmacher, but Lozon got the fight. So hey, you can get him now.
Yeah, your wish is my command, right? So yeah, I think Jim Miller versus Chris Gritzmacher. I agree with you. That is a good matchup. You know, not much to say about LaFleur versus Garcia. You know, it was a typical after Garcia gassed, LaFleur took over. It was what it was. But one fight I do want to talk about, Ricky Simón versus Merab Dvalishvili. Now, whatever we say here is going to be super controversial. So, have at it first, man. I mean, was he out or was he not out?
Look, okay, there's 2 sides to look at it. You can look at the betting side, if you had money on the fight, or you can look at the street side or the what really happened side. In terms of a rules aspect, in terms of a betting aspect, if I had money on Merab Dvalishvili, I would have been absolutely fucking pissed because in my eyes, he didn't tap. Yes, he did go out. It was pretty fucking evident he went out. But he didn't tap. And the bell rang. When the bell rings, the fight's over. It goes to the cards. Plain and simple. You know, I mean, I thought it was pretty cut and dry. The thing is, in terms of a real aspect, in terms of a street aspect, what really happened, Ricky Simón choked him out. He finished him. I mean, Merab got, knocked out on the takedown. And, he went out. The thing is, Merab's such a warrior, he didn't tap. So, at the end of the day, I understand both sides. It sucks. This is the part of the game. These things, happen from time to time. I think him appealing it, I think it actually got denied, which is what I expected to happen. But, it's unfortunate that it went that way. I mean, the guy can't catch a break. I mean, he beat Frankie. And, this thing's happened in his area. Even though he's not from New Jersey, you would think it's his adopted hometown. So I was thinking that thing was totally going to go to the cards. But shout out to Ricky Simón. Like we said, he's a winner. He finds a way to win. And I think he's going to go on to win a lot of fights in the UFC.
Yeah, I agree with that. The fight I want to see from Merab next, just to, because he unfortunately went 0-2 which, it sucks because I thought he beat Frankie Saenz. It turned out he had the flu that night, and you could see it was evident because look at his energy level in the Ricky Simone fight. It was a completely different guy. I feel like if that guy would have fought Frankie Saenz, he would have put him to sleep. But the fight I want to see now is Merab Dvalishvili versus Andrei Sukhumtut. I mean, go ahead and give my boy Merab a win. You know what I'm saying? How is Sukhumtut going to find a way to lose that one is all I got to say. But look, as far as the controversy is concerned, if you look at the 56-second mark of the third round, when there's 56 seconds left on the fight, Merab gets knocked out by the takedown. I mean, he slams his head on the mat. He goes limp. That's the only reason that Ricky Simone was able to so effortlessly reverse him and mount him. I mean, the dude was limp. He was out cold. And then he woke up in the choke. So from there, the whole bicycle kicking thing, Mark Goddard, who is probably the worst ref in the history of the sport, said that Merab wasn't aware of what he was doing. Now, whether that's true or not, I don't know. But what I will say is, at the very end of the fight, when the final bell rang and Ricky let go of the choke, Merab was out cold for at least 2 seconds. Now, does that mean that the win should go to Ricky? Because like you said, Shaq, when the bell rings, the fight's over. And when it's over, it's over. But, you remember a fight between Gray Maynard and Rob Emerson when they both knocked each other out, right? And, when you're unconscious, I mean, it's different, because people are trying to bring up that Sean O'Malley, he couldn't get up. But that was different. He wasn't unconscious. He was just injured.
The thing is with Gray and Rob, they both got knocked out. The thing is with this, like Matt Brown said, I think Matt Brown said it best. It's cut and dry. He didn't tap. The bell rang. The fight's over. It doesn't matter if he was unconscious or not. I mean, he was unconscious, but he woke right back up. And I think the doctors did kind of, make a big deal out of it. But the thing is, Ricky, by a street sense, if that fight happened on the street, Ricky won that fight. But with the rules, I think Matt Brown said it best. He didn't tap. The bell rang. Fight's over. It goes to the cards.
Yeah, well said. I mean, if the ref wanted to step in and stop it, he should have done it with 56 seconds left at the third round because, Merab knocked himself out with that takedown when he went out limp.
Anyone that bet on Simone, you got to be thankful. These things tend to happen sometimes, and then whoever bet Merab, it's just like, man, it happens, man. It's a part of the game. You move on. It sucks that happened to the kid 2 times in a row. And, maybe he can get this Andrei Sukhumtut fight, or maybe a Matthew Lopez fight.
Yeah, I'd like to see Merab versus Andrei Sukhumtut. And for Ricky Simone, look, you could rush him to the top 15, but what I was thinking, how about get him a nice little win because we got a fight coming up in Chile between Henry Briones and Frankie Saenz, and just get him another win in the UFC. Like, let's showcase his talents. I mean, he's just a kid, so I say put Ricky Simone in there with the winner.
I thought that was.
What's up?
I thought that was one of his worst performances that I've seen out of him. But Ricky's still a kid, man. He's still grown. The fact that he still was able to find a way to get your hand raised is all that matters, and he's one of those guys.
Yeah, and he took it on short notice, too. I mean, he just fought like 2 weeks prior on Access TV, so the kid's a complete stud, and I want to see him in there with the winner of Henry Briones versus Frankie Saenz. So that's what I want to see next for Ricky, and Merab versus Andrei Sukhumtut. Now, the knockout of the night, CR Bahadurzada versus Luan Chagas. I mean, up until that point, they were going to war. CR was landing some hard shots on the feet, which he is known for, Shaq. Luan had a beautiful back take. They get back up to the feet. The second round starts. And my boy CR, he landed a dagger to the body of Luan Chagas. Luan crumbled, and that was all she wrote.
Yeah, man. CR, watching tape on CR, I mean, he kind of struck me as one of these guys that's going to trick a lot of these young cats, man, because, you look at him, he's got a gut, he's old, he fights once every 2 years. A lot of these young cats probably think they're going to get him out of here, but his setups for those chin touches, man, are very deceptive, man. So, Chagas, like we said on the show last week, he does have a cardio issue, and he's already got that slow, methodical style. Mixed in with the cardio issue was not good in my opinion, and I predicted CR to knock him out in the second and third round. So I think CR is one of these guys that you can't sleep on, even though he is an old man, because even though he's an old man, his body really doesn't have that much miles on it because he only fights once every 2 years. So I think CR, he should fight an Alan Jouban next, maybe, or a fun fight. I don't want to see CR in there with, a LaFleur who's just going to hug his legs and, he's probably going to lose a decision. I want to see him against these young cats that are going to try to take his head off.
Yeah, I agree with you. I had a match for him. I can't think of it right now, but I do like CR versus Alan Jouban. It's going to be sad to see one of those guys take a canvas snap because, as you know, when those two get in there, someone's most likely going down. So I do like that CR versus Alan Jouban matchup, and this was the last fight on Luan Chagas' deal. But, man, all 4 of his UFC fights have been super exciting, so I hope they re-sign Luan Chagas. He's a very exciting guy. And, you could put Luan Chagas in there with my boy Josh Berkman.
Unfortunately, I do think they're going to let him go. I think it's a case of, like we said, I feel like it's a case of why put him in these fights against all these old vets. And, they offered him a contract, and he specifically did not take it to roll the dice. And, we have seen him offer new guys, but you're going to have to take a low number. Hopefully he does. I wouldn't be shocked if they let him go 1-3, losses to Eric Silva. And, he's a young kid. I think he does need a little bit more seasoning, though.
Yeah, I agree 100%. That's why I want to see him in there with the George Sullivans, with the Josh Berkmans, with guys like, I was going to say the Eric Silvas. He already lost to him, Shaq. But, you get where I'm going with this, so I hope they re-sign him. And with CR, only put him in exciting matchups. If Matt Brown or Carlos Condit want to take that fight, that'd be incredible. So, yeah, CR Bahadurzada always electrifies the crowd. Now, a performance that really surprised me, that didn't surprise others, was Corey Anderson versus Patrick Cummins because, I said before the fact, how could you trust either of these guys with your money? And Corey Anderson went out there and he proved me wrong because he had a max bet worthy performance over Pat Cummins, and he's a D3 wrestler. He took down the D1 wrestler multiple times. It looked like the D1 wrestler, he hadn't been training his wrestling for about 5 to 10 years, Shaq. That's what it looked like to me.
Yeah, a lot of times this D1 versus D3 thing kind of gets overblown just because, D1 and D3, and I think it's because my boy Brock Lesnar said back in the day, because, Brock's a Division I national champion, and when he fought Shane Carwin was a Division II national champion, and my boy Brock was like, that's why the NCAA has to make Division II and Division III and NAIA, so these kids, what he said was really fucked up. He said, so these kids don't jump off a cliff and kill themselves because they're not good enough. So, I think the whole D3 thing, it's MMA wrestling, you know what I'm saying? MMA wrestling, we've seen plenty of D1 wrestlers. I mean, look at Jim Miller, John Moraga. Those guys have, get taken down on the reg. So, it's all about that MMA wrestling. Corey was the better fighter in every aspect of the game, and he was a max bet.
Yeah, he beat the shit out of Pat Cummins. And a even more high-level example of what you're talking about, Daniel Cormier is the Olympic wrestler. John Jones is the JUCO wrestler, and John Jones took down Daniel Cormier multiple times. So it really does come down to that MMA wrestling.
Yes, sir. John Jones is a great example of that. My boy John Jones and Colby Covington was grinding it out on that JUCO wrestling scene.
Yes, sir. So the first fight of the night between Tony Martin and Keita Nakamura, I said on the show that anytime Keita Nakamura is the dog, he's always worth a small shot. And man, it looked like he got old overnight, from being a guy that can be in a back-and-forth war with Zaleski, from being a guy that can be in a back-and-forth war with Morano, choking out Li Jingliang. He had absolutely nothing for Tony Martin, and that's the fight game. You get old overnight when you least expect it, and props to Tony for getting a 30-27 on all 3 judges' scorecards.
Yeah, Tony did his thing. I guess it was the weight cut to an extent. I'm interested to see where he goes from there, but he looked good. I mean, I think Keitaro's always been old, but I just think he's been crafty. But that size that Tony Martin put on was clearly evident. I mean, he definitely had the pop on the shots.
100%. Well, man, it was a fun card. Bellator 198 is going to be a fun card. Make sure you check out Best Fight Pick sponsored athlete Emmanuel Sanchez in the co-main event. And use the promo code Matador at bestfightpicks.com checkout to save 15% off any package. And as we already said, Shaq, UFC 224, we already have a consensus max bet, and the line's still good for it. And when we have a consensus max bet, so far, we are undefeated on those, so they better take advantage of that, Shaq.
Yeah, UFC 224 in Brazil. It's gonna be a big night, probably even bigger than UFC 222, UFC 223. Got one max bet down, might even have another. It's gonna be easy money and a solid night.
Indeed it is. I mean, Jacare versus Gastelum, Nunes versus Pennington, Lineker versus Kelleher, Vitor Belfort versus Machida. Zaleski's on the card, man. It's going to be a serious one.
I mean, I truly believe that these max bets is going to be some of the easiest money that my clients has ever made, man. You know, last week, hey, it is what it is. Sometimes you lose, but the thing is, I always bounce back from my losses, and I can guarantee you, ain't no two losing weeks in a row. Max bet season, you already know what that means. Put your money down. It's going to win. It's going to get the job done.
And May is a huge month for us because not only do we have the max bet, which you already mentioned, for UFC 224, we already booked it. It's already been sent out to our clients. And the line is still not where it should be because it should be a lot higher. It's still very, very playable. Already had the max bet booked for UFC 224. We have big plans for the next card in UFC Chile as well. And they can sign up at bestfightpicks.com. Use that promo code Matador. We'll be talking next week as well. And follow Shaq at MMA Genius 05. Follow me at Best Fight Picks. Go to bestfightpicks.com for the play. Subscribe to Half the Battle on iTunes, SoundCloud, YouTube, and Stitcher. Hook up those 5-star reviews. Check out our official Instagram at Best Fight Picks Official. And until the next time, let's cash these bets.